Welcome to this edition of Ethical Living. So happy to have you here. This program is about highlighting individuals who are involved in ethical actions and activities in their communities and ways that you may become involved as well. Our guest for this edition is Sharon Stanley. And I don't know if you have a title, doctor or anything like that, but it then leads into the first thing I'd be interested in knowing, and that's tell us a little bit about yourself. Some of the things you might be involved in. I know you're a personnel director of the AEU.
I'm not the director, I'm on the personnel committee.
And you're here to talk about an institution you became involved in. I believe it's Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America.
Yes.
Good to tell us a little bit about the organization, how you became involved.
I've always been afraid of guns. I was always never wanted to guns. No one in my family ever hunted. The idea of guns just has always made me uncomfortable. But after what happened in Parkland in 2018, and that was when Scott Beagle was a teacher. He was 32 years old, and they had an active shooter in the building, and they did the active shooter drill stuff. And the last student who didn't get into the room is banging on the door. Scott Beagle opened the door to let his student in, and he was killed by the gunman that killed children and other staff members from Parkland High School. And at that moment, something clicked in my head, because I would have been him. I would have been that teacher. How could you not let a kid in? But that's the protocol for these gun safety drills. And this wasn't a drill. This was the real thing. The child lived, which is amazing. But just the fact that he was a teacher, and just that he did that human thing of opening the door and letting his child in, his student in, it just made me, I just could see it was me. I just felt if I was in that situation, I would have been that person. I would have been killed.
How did you discover this organization?
They have a Long Island chapter that was 2 towns away from my house. So I was able to attend some local meetings, at which point they said, "Oh, you used to be a teacher. Why don't you become part of our public education program?" So that is my title for them, is I'm a public education presenter.
Tell us what the organization does.
The end game is to change legislation. The end game is to speak to our senators and our congresspeople and get them to vote on safer gun safety legislation. So we go to rallies, we go to parks, we do these outreach education events by explaining what safe storage is. For me, I think safe storage is a game changer. That was also something that when I started learning about this stuff, that suddenly clicked in my head, that almost all gun violence is the result of someone finding an unsecured weapon.
And so Mom's Demand is not about gun control, from what I understand, but gun safety, you say?
Yes, we never use the word control, because first of all, we don't want to control. When people say control, of course, gun owners are going to be upset, because we're saying we want to control them. That's not what we want to do. We're moms. We want to protect children. We want to stop children from dying. So we want safety. That's all we want. And luckily, I live in a state where, which I brought up earlier, safe storage is the law here. But I believe if safe storage was practiced everywhere, it would be a game changer in the gun violence in America. And by safe storage, I mean having your gun locked and unloaded with the ammunition stored separately. That's a law in New York State. And that's why New York State, is one of the 3 safest states in our country. But yes, the end result would be, if the whole country, if we could have some gun safety legislation that would be nationwide and not state by state. This is important. I feel like we need to scream this to the world, that we've got to take care of this. This is really, really important. And just because you own a gun doesn't mean, you should be against gun safety practices. It doesn't make sense to me. People should want there to be less deaths in America. People should want our children to be living in a safer place.
And so anyone that wants to get involved, you say all they have to do is call that number?
Text READY to 64433. and someone will automatically get back to you at some point, and you can then talk to them about different ways to join.
It's a very exciting organization. You've given information as to how people can get involved, and I would agree with you that it is a very, very important thing to be doing, especially for our kids. We've been talking with Sharon Stanley, hey, and an individual who's a member of the Ethical Society, and her involvement with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Thank you for your time. I'm Solomon Gibson III. Glad you were able to join us, and hope you come back for the next edition.